clear proof.
Through the grapevine. Okay, our event is starting. No more
Okay.
swearing.
Okay.
Hold on. You may want to visit your channel to feature your live stream. Do you want to be featured? Okay, it is streaming. Screen looks good.
Okay.
Go.
So we're on. Okay. All right. Well, I'll repeat myself since the friends from other places were not here when I introduced myself. I'm June Delay. I've been with CBS since probably 2001-ish. And
I'm Ariel Peterson. I'm the Vice President of CBS.
and also my progeny. So she attended her first show in 2003 or 4 and proceeded to win Novice Best in Show with a little fish we
It was not.
with a fish we picked up at a fish store because that was before they had the rules about that. Anyway, so and that was our first show. We've been doing shows with CBS ever since. And this is not just our wisdom or intelligence. This is kind of the collective wisdom. I showed this presentation to CBS, and there were at one of our meetings a while back, and they made suggestions and things. So all of the information is in here.
And we co-chaired in like 2010 or 11.
Yeah, I think it was 11 fall.
On a fall show.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of brought that on.
It was a good show too. We did it over a 3-day weekend, and so we took 2 days, and it was cool. And people got to relax a little bit, which was nice. All right, so the parts of a show that you need to coordinate and decide on when you are going to have a show are scheduling, location, procedures, advertising, volunteers, auction/raffle, which is where you make your money back, and then wrapping up and what needs to be done kind of to close it out. All right. So for the biggest thing you need to do is to get a date, because with no date, then no one knows where to be and when to be there. So you got to pick a date. You got to pick a date that your club likes. Usually, maybe pick 1 or 2 alternates just to be sure, and then you get a hold of the IBC show scheduler to be sure that the date that you want is available, and then you pay them the fee, and you are set to go. So that's once you've got that going, then you get to start thinking the other fun elements of things. I'll just look at you, and if you have something to say, you can jump.
I'll jump right in.
Okay, all right. So the biggest and sometimes the hardest thing to figure out what to do about your show is where to have it. Location is definitely important. You need things when you're figuring out what kind of space that you want to use. The size of the space. It's got to be big enough to house multiple tables with multiple racks of fish and side tables.
That can be hard, especially if you're just starting out with shows and you don't really have an idea how many you're going to get. You haven't done the size requirements, so as much forethought as you can put into it and contingency planning is really good.
Yeah. And then you need to figure out the transportation, parking, and amenities, because hopefully you'll have a lot of people who come to help, and then you'll have even more people coming to the auction, because again, that's where the club money comes from. And then where you are in terms of the club.
What was the year we had it at, what was it, somewhere in Oakland or something?
Yeah.
Or Hayward, and the parking
was
like really
was terrible. That was the show we went to, yeah.
And
yeah,
so you wanna think about
The Centennial Hall show?
Yeah.
That was the parking.
That was our first one,
there.
and we didn't know what
Yeah.
we were doing.
And
The show space was huge, but man, there was no place to park, and you had to stay there because commuting back and forth was a pain. So anyway, and then think about the number of people in fish. The other things you have to think about: is the venue okay with you having large containers of water? What if there's a leak? What are they going to do about that? Things like that. So, and you've got to be able to get the water from where it comes from to the showroom. We've had hotels where there was a hose outside that we used. Here we use big trash cans that get rolled into the men's room or women's room, I'm assuming, but there were men with it at the time when I came and saw. And there's a hose that gets it down into the buckets, and then they just go back into the showroom. So water. Do they have access to table and chairs that you can use? You can get up to upwards of 300 fish. We had 500 in this show for those of you who aren't here and available for that. So, and you don't want it to be too crowded because the room's already going to be warm. You have to, and will the hotel, if you're doing it at a hotel, or will the venue adjust the temperature for you so that you can have the room at 74 degrees or 76 degrees and not freeze your tiny fish? So all of those things.
And you gotta keep in mind, like, where are your club members who are going to be helping you or stuff, because it might influence whether they decide to come volunteer if they have to commute a really long way to get there and pay an expensive hotel versus like being able to just come in. And so we have members from, what is it, like Sacramento to like Santa Cruz?
Not so much, I don't know if there's too many from Sacramento anymore, but we've got a pretty
But
wide
so
group
we have
of
a really
people. And
wide
so,
range, so we always try, and if, like, even with our meetings, we try and have different locations that kind of move around, but we've been really happy with here, and it seems to work really well.
yeah, we like this place well enough that we really tried to make it work for the convention too, and I think it has. Some good options, hotels obviously are one of the more common places that you have beta shows. The only problem with hotels is they can be expensive for getting the rooms that you need, especially if you're doing more of a 2-day show, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Having someone in your group with previous hotel liaison experience is a huge plus if you want to go with a hotel, because they know like what to say and like how to work the deals and get the combos that make it much more tenable to do.
Yeah, a little bit cheaper. Rec centers, I know we've never used them, CBS has never used a rec center, but they're good options. The only problem with them is they're not always super accommodating in terms of bringing in water, we've got these wood floors for, wedding parties to dance on, and if you put water on them, things like that, or you can only get it for a certain amount of time, or they don't want to give it to you overnight. You can get it this day and the next day, but not in the middle, which is kind of a drag. I've heard of clubs having shows at pet stores and fish stores and have big back rooms and areas that are available for that. That's a really good option because you've got the foot traffic of people coming in looking at pets and fish, plus you've got, usually they'll just donate it to you, or you can use it for a small fee, but they often will donate because then they're getting more foot traffic from your people coming into the auction. Again, something CBS hasn't been able to do, but if you make it work, it's awesome.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah?
The flower horn people, what they do is they do it either at a local fish store or they'll do it at like a warehouse type retail store.
Yeah.
And then they set up this big event with amenities and stuff for people to come, and they have huge raffles and stuff.
Yeah.
And that seems to bring in a lot of people from, I've never attended one, but I've seen pictures on Facebook. It seems like a really big success.
Oh, that's very cool. We just haven't really found any pet stores in the area that have that kind of a space that's big enough.
They keep
That's,
disappearing.
yeah, and and a lot of the brick and mortar pet stores are disappearing.
Yeah.
There's a place in Campbell, where you have your where you do the dog training.
Oh.
And
yeah.
they're a big pet store, and they've got a back room, but it's absolutely not big enough for a beta show. I mean, it's big enough for, to do a dog training with, 8 or 10 dogs, but there's not enough room for them to have the tables that are needed. So that has never worked. Private homes and businesses, I wish I had a private home big enough to have a beta show. But you can sometimes find places that will let you use the space. If somebody works, for example, if somebody worked at a school that had a site that that had, some flexibility or something like that, they might be able to work something out. And there's other options, if you think about it, the main thing you need is, 4 walls and a roof and access to water and places to put all the things that you need overnight. So you can be a little creative about that. The other thing you need for your show is you need to find somebody to be a show chair. And it can be a rewarding job, it can be a very thankless job. I've been a show chair twice and a co-chair once, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You need to base the choice of show chair on experience. If you're a brand new club and nobody has any experience, I would say go with the person who has the best, what you consider to be kind of the best leadership ability, or who maybe does leadership kinds of things in their job function. Yeah, being able to delegate, see what needs to be done, and not have to micromanage. Micromanaging is death to a show chair because there's so many bits and pieces. They should be active club members. You shouldn't call, Bob, who never comes to the meeting, and ask him to be the show chair, even if he does have experience. And chairing a show can be trying, so try to be as supportive of your show chair as you want. If you have a good show chair, the show will go brilliantly and beautifully, and everybody will be happy. If you have and I'm not a bad person, but a show chair who just really isn't prepared or isn't ready to roll, or has problems delegating, or does too much delegating, or any of the other things that they can do, it can be really hard as a worker bee to be dealing with somebody like that. And experience doesn't mean like I went to a show last year. Experience is hopefully somebody who's at least been to a few shows and helped out with a few shows, not just visited. The other question that you have to answer is show chair or chairs, co-chairs. Some have won. Like I said, I've chaired twice and co-chaired once. You have to figure out what works best for your club. The honest truth is, I would much rather be a co-chair. I had the opportunity to co-chair with Ariel, and she and I work really well together because I tend to be a little bit more able to put out fires on the fly, and she's really good at the organizational aspects of it, like way better than I am.
I did all like the data management and the auction and registration and that kind of like data aspects, and she did like personnel and liaising and hotel and kind of like at like ground control.
Yeah, and dealing with
So I was behind a computer all weekend, and she was out in the room doing stuff, and that's kind of a good, if you have two people that work together, that's kind of a good way to break things up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wrote that down. One has registrations database and stuff, and the other one, if there's one, and if you can imagine, if there's one person that's doing all of those things, having to be behind the computer doing that part, and handling things that happen in the show, it's not easy to do. Now, you don't necessarily need another chair to handle that stuff. We have what we call a Nelson, and he handles a lot of that stuff. If there's one chair for the show, usually our Nelson manages the rest of it. Because he's awesome. But no, you need somebody, if you don't have two chairs, then you absolutely, the chair needs to have a go-to person that they can say, hey, and that person will know, if the chair says, hey, go handle the organization to get ready for the auction. That person knows what that means and doesn't have to have it explained to them because the show chair is busy doing other things. So a good left hand or a good right hand is very important. Now, if you have a show, you want to have people show up and you want to have people send fish. No fish, no show, no auction, no money, sad club. So you need to have fish. You announce on the IBC mailing list, so IBC is kind of generally let know about it, the members of the IBC, and then you can also post it. It gets posted in Flare, and you do an invitation. The other thing that we've done in past shows is sent postcards out to everybody who's ever showed a fish at any of our shows. I'm not sure we did it for convention because I don't think it's necessary, but for most shows, we send out little postcards saying, hey, we're having the show, please send some fish, we love you. And that gets people that might not look at Flare or might not know IBC folks out there, it gets them in, and other local breeders that maybe aren't in the IBC. And if you have club members that don't always attend the club meetings, make sure you send out email, or you can send them out notes or invitations, or put it in newsletters. And then to kind of get the general public involved, because we have a lot of people who never come to meetings, aren't members of CBS, but they show up for the auctions because they know we have good fish and the prices are good. So you can send out information via, we've sent flyers to pet stores and had them put them in bags or hand them out to people who are interested. We put notices up at various of our jobs and places that we frequent, places where you can put up notices, things like that. Tell your friends. I just posted on Facebook and told all my friends to come on Sunday because there was going to be an auction and there was going to be a lot of fish and they were probably not going to be super expensive. So even people that you don't think might be interested, maybe they're going to come out and find a betta for, little George's bedroom, and, they might decide to pick up a couple more while they're there. Or tell somebody who's interested in bettas.
That's what happens with bettas. You're like, oh, I'll just get one. And then you're here.
And then you're having conventions. All right. So, if anybody has questions, I'm assuming you'll all stop me. You're all bold and brave souls. So there's things that you need to make decisions about prepping for your show. You need to decide the show times, when you're starting, when you're ending, what the schedule is in the middle. Registration requirements, if you're going to have limits, who's going to receive the fish and hold them until the show. Extras, do you want to have a raffle? Do you want to have a cash sale table? I strongly advise both of those. They're good things. The logistics, who's doing what, who's getting where, when, who's going to set up the tables, who's going to be there the whole time. And then executing the auction, who will do what, who the volunteers are and what they're going to do. the execution of the auction, and then what you need in terms of materials and supplies.
Picking a good auctioneer, I don't know if you talked about that.
There's an auctioneer section. Save it. Just save it. You were supposed to look at this.
I was setting things on
You were setting
fire.
things on
Yeah.
fire, I understand.
Oh, do you have like a list of materials and supplies?
I've got, yeah, there's a partial list towards the end. All of those bullet points I'm gonna talk about a little bit.
Okay.
There's generally two structures. We've done both with CBS. A one-day show where you set up, say you're doing it on the weekend. So you set up the one-day show on Friday afternoon or evening. Everybody's set up and ready to be judged. Saturday morning, everybody comes in, the judges start judging. All the judging gets done. You bag all the fish for auction. You have the auction, and then you bag up all the fish that get to go home. And by Saturday night, usually sometime around or thereabouts, you drag your weary body home, but you're done and you've got Sunday to recuperate. 2-day shows, you set up in the afternoon like on a Friday, you have judging on Saturday, kind of take it easy on Saturday, whatever, and then on Sunday you have the auction, and then you usually have all the fish bagged at that point, so you just have the auction and then you're done and you get to leave earlier, but that takes up the whole weekend pretty much. So we did, like I said, our show was a 2-day show. We did it over a long 3-day weekend. So we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but then we had Monday off because it was a 3-day weekend. So that worked out nice. And the other part of that was we managed to make a deal with the hotel to give us the room for 2 days for 1-day rate. And so that's why that was fiscally reasonable. A lot of times you'll go with a 1-day show just because it's going to be a lot cheaper for you in terms of your overhead to only have to rent the rooms for the, Friday afternoon to Sunday night or Saturday night. The 1-day pro is not so many days of work for volunteers, which means that you don't have people say, well, I can come Saturday, but I can't be there Sunday or whatever. And the cost obviously is a little bit less. The cons is it's a quick turnaround. You are busting your butt to get those fish bagged up for the auction and the go back fish on Saturday. By the time Saturday ends, your brain is about the consistency of brie. The nice thing about a 2-day show is that it's a lot more relaxed. You can socialize a little bit. You can maybe have not so many people helping. If you have, if you have fewer club members, a 2-day might be better, even though it costs a little more if you think you can make it up in the auction, because things can get done at a slower pace. You don't need so many bodies.
Well, and depending on the space that you have, fewer people might be more feasible so that it's not, or the supplies you have, if you only have like one big bucket and you're trying to do bagging and you have 6 people trying to do it, it's not going to work out so well. But if you have more time, you can have less people and get by with fewer supplies and less cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, the other nice thing about a 2-day show is the auction. You can take longer at the auction and really encourage people to bid more. So there's a little bit of a balance in terms of paying a little extra money for the hotel, but maybe you might make more on the auction because you can go a little slower and get people more excited. Things to consider if you're trying to decide whether to have a 1-day or 2-day show: how many volunteers you have and how many days they're available. If everybody, like I said, can come Saturday but nobody can come Sunday, that kind of answers your question. The cost of the venue: if it's free, I would always go with the 2-day show, always, because it's not costing you any more and you get to breathe and relax, and you can probably get more auction money. Travel time: do attendees have to go a long way to come to the show, and do your volunteers have to drive a long way to get to your venue? If so, you might need to have a 1-day show because people aren't going to want to spend the night somewhere, and they're not going to want to have to commute multiple days. And then the local amenities. If the show is at a hotel, if you're going to have a 2-day show, people might need a place to stay, and that's kind of fun too, because it becomes like a little slumber party, like convention, where we can, we can hang out and have some hospitality in the evenings and that kind of thing. So that's all good. Your show needs to include certain elements. You have to have a setup, registration, and benching time. You have to have time for judges to come in. Then you have to have the room reset and bagging and prep for the auction. And then the auction, and then your raffle and cash table if you want to do that. And then let people check out with their fish and go away. And then you have to kind of clean up. And you should have the times written down, post it, so that everybody knows when things are happening. Judges don't like people in the showroom, so don't have the general public come until after the judging is done. Things like that.
Yeah. Schedule including like when you can actually be here versus when the volunteers are here versus when the judges are needed. You're always needed if you're a show chair. It's always there.
You're always there. You might get to sleep, but it's a little dicey.
But so multiple schedules kind of work into one.
Yeah. When you have a show, members send fish, IBC and your local club members send fish, and you have some decisions to make about that process, pre-registration or not. I'm not even sure that's a question anymore. I don't know that I would ever consider having a show where I didn't have people pre-register, because it's such a time saver to have all the information databased and ready to go, and just have to, just be able to have the labels already and print it out and just slap them on the beanies and be done with it. I'm not sure I would ever, like I said, I would ever not have people pre-reg. I imagine there might be a reason for it, but I don't know what it would be.
Well, then you know how many fish you're getting too, and you're not,
Yeah.
you don't leave and then have a box show up that you have to go back for because they didn't say they were sending them and then they're here.
Yeah, all of a sudden, here they are. Yeah, and you want to have the upfront numbers so you know how many beanie babies and shells and stuff that you're going to need. Then the other element is, are you going to have any limits to entries or on auction only fish? And that's a club decision. If you're not a very big club, you might want to consider having like a 10 fish limit or a 15 fish show limit for each person who's sending fish, or you might choose to have like 5 fish auction only for the people who are sending fish, that kind of thing, just so that it's manageable for your club. The big and exciting job of receiving fish, and that can be the show chair or not. I would suggest it not be the show chair, just because, unless you've got co-chairs, just because it's a big job all in itself. They need to receive the boxes, they need to get the fish, have them shipped to their house or place of business. They need to have access to the club's whatever database, and I'll talk about databases in a minute, but they need to have access to the database so that they can check the fish in when they come. And then they need to be able to have a big enough vehicle to get the boxes of fish to the show location. So those are all those elements. What will happen is they'll take delivery from the post office, they'll open each box, they'll check the fish to be sure that they're alive. They compare the registration sheet with the pre-reg, just to make sure that they match. There's the same number of bags, the same number of fish, the same numbers and all that. Then they make sure that everybody's alive. If there's DOAs, they need to take pictures of them. If any of them look like their fins are blown or they look really terrible, take pictures of them and send them back to the breeder and say, this is how your fish arrived. And then they need close, popped bags. Yeah, if there's bags popped, have enough bags to be able to rebag the fish. And then they put the bags back in the box the fish up, and then take them to the show. Then you've got situations, again, like DOAs, like sick fish. You can have fish that show up a week early, which we had, and I became foster mom to some fish for a week. And
there was 2 sets that came a week early.
Oh.
The one you had and the ones that came from overseas.
Oh, I didn't know there was another set.
Jeremy took care of those. That's why Jeremy couldn't add another 20 fish to his lot.
So there's that. There's lost in transit boxes, which is super fun. You get to spend a great deal of time on the phone trying not to scream at people, but they're live, at the post office. They're live fish. Why are they lost?
The breeder is screaming at you.
Yes. Because breeders don't like their fish to be lost. It's a strange thing. Yeah. So you've got the breeder on one phone screaming at you, and then you're screaming at the post office on the other side. It's a lot of fun. And then sometimes the counts are off. They'll send you like 3 extra fish, and you have no idea where these fish are and where they came from or what they're doing. That kind of thing. And then the fish that show up late. I never received this box. Now it's Friday and we're benching the fish, and it's Friday at 10 p.m. and there's somebody's spouse calls and says, hey, there's another box of fish arrived. What do you want me to do about it? So do you disqualify those fish and send them back? Do you make a special trip home and get them benched at 3 in the morning before the show starts the next day? So these are all the decisions that the person has to do. They don't necessarily, like I said, have to be the show chair, maybe better if they're not, but they need to be quick thinking and they need to be diplomatic. They need to be able to interface effectively with the post office and the other breeders and everybody else. The other thing you need for your show is judges. You gotta be winners and losers. They're all pretty fish, but they can't all be winners. So the judge decides who gets the prizes and who gets to go away. And judging can take a while. I think they're still judging in the showroom now, because sometimes you start late, and sometimes you have a lot of reclasses, and sometimes you have fish that need help. Yeah, there was a lot of those in the show. So you got to schedule plenty of time. Make sure that you give a big, schedule like an hour more than you think you need, and then assume it's probably going to even go a little bit longer than that. I don't know that we've ever had a show where the judging started and ended on time ever.
Yeah, and I think 2 hours for reclassing minimum.
Yeah.
Just reclassing.
Yeah,
not even the judging. Just
Yeah, it's a big job.
Cause yeah, the schedule changes a lot.
Yeah, and you'll have at least 3 judges, 3 to 5 judges is usually the norm. The judge with the most seniority is the head judge of the show, and that person will be the one who makes the tie-breaking decisions if the judges are locked in a tie for various elements of the show. You may also have apprentice judges that are learning from the master judges, and then the judges will pick the top 3 fish in each class, and then give the person who's running the computer that information to get it down. And then they pick the division winners, so the A division, the B division, the C division, there's each a division winner. And then they'll pick an overall best of show male and female, a novice best of show male and female, and then a lot of shows will pick a reserve best of show and a reserve novice best of show. Those are not worth points, but they're kind of cool for the person who, comes in second. It's not just a miscongeniality award. It's pretty righteous to know that your fish of the whole show came in second, even if you, like I said, if you don't get IBC points. And you have to make sure the judging results get entered properly. Make sure whoever's working on the computer has a clear head and not fumble fingers, because IBC breeders take the points very seriously. You'll see at the award ceremony tomorrow how exciting it is to see people win the awards for the highest point totals and things.
And you want to have, I don't think it said, and it might not be implied, but you want to have judging sheets that have what each one goes, so that you don't have to tell the person who's typing it down, oh, this fish won this one, and juxtapose numbers in your head. It's just you write it down and you give it to them, you put it in a bin, and they get to it as they're going.
Yeah.
And if you can be filling out if you have enough time and mental wherewithal to fill out your records and then the IBC records kind of consistently, then you can get the results posted really quickly, and everyone is really happy. I think we did that for the show that
I think you did, yeah, because you were jamming and you weren't having to worry about anything else.
Yeah. Having a dedicated computer person is really great. Who knows how to use Excel.
Yeah.
What's the time limit for getting points up?
I think they want them by the Monday after the show is the kind of the end, and I know it's
48 hours, I thought.
Is it for, okay, so if your show ends on Saturday night, then they want to make sure that it's up within 48. That's usually what we do, so that's why I'm thinking Monday, because if you can get them up faster, that's awesome. We did get them up early, because we had a lot of people like, oh my God, this can't be right, and they can't possibly have it up by now, and we kind of did.
Multitask.
Because you're a multitasking rock star. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, the other cool thing is having the judging sheets is a lot of times the judges will make comments, and the breeders are sometimes interested in those, because it's all anonymous, so the judge has no idea who the breeder is, and the breeder doesn't know. Well, the breeder can see who the judges are, but you can
know which judge said which specific thing.
The one time I showed fish, it was cool to read the comments on the judging sheet and see why they thought my fish was second best, my one big signing, besides her win. Anyway, that part's kind of cool too if the breeder's on site. And there should be awards. IBC points are good and all that, but everybody wants tangible awards. You can have certificates, or you can have awards, a physical award that's for at least best of show and novice best of show. We like to do the best and reserve and novice best and reserve. Or new breeder? Okay, I'm sorry. It used to be novice, now it's new breeder. Apologies out there in YouTube land, or live streaming land, or wherever we are. And yeah, and then some shows will pick, and we've done this in the past, and I kind of like this one. Some shows do the People's Choice Award. And so they give a little slip of paper out to everybody who just comes in and looks around, and then whichever fish gets the most votes for People's Choice wins. And there could be a little prize for that, or a ribbon or something like that.
We also do a special thing at our shows, which is in honor of actually her father and my grandfather who passed away, who used to always donate wine to our club, and it's the True Red Award. And so what we do is she and I will go and pick the fish that approximates the color of wine most closely, and they win a bottle of red wine.
I had a ribbon this year for con. Yeah, Jeremy got ribbons. We have 2 ribbons, 1 bottle of wine. So if we're in an argument, we have to hash it out who gets the bottle of wine and who just gets the ribbon.
Okay.
So, and then and then the People's Choice Award if you want to do that. So there should be a tangible award for the best, and then usually there's ribbons for the division winners and the number one in the class and then the number one in the division. And usually something cool. We've had,
Yeah. But some of the things we've done, the one that I won that was really cool was like a sculpture with like a Betta kind of thing. That was also an award.
Yeah, that's
We've
really
done
cool.
engraved, like glass kind of plaques with backgrounds. This year we have the engraved carafes, which was me. To go with the wine theme. What else have we done?
We do cups for the Breeders' Cup, which is another, if you have a Breeders' Cup, we give out a Breeders' Cup award, and that person gets a cup. At convention they get money, which is better, but a cup is nice.
Breeders' cups are good because they bring in additional income because usually the breeders donate the fish for that.
That's, I talked about that a little bit in extras. No, that's okay. You don't have to.
What other, we had any other?
We did the plexiglass for several years.
Yeah.
And those were really pretty. I'm sure there's been other things, and the sculpture was really cool too. And you can do
Art, you can do.
art, glasses, blown glass, find people who do sculptures. There's a lot of things. You be creative about it. Because cool awards actually give you, they garner a lot of good feelings, so don't skimp and just, give out a, 2-inch paperweight shaped vaguely like a fish. Try to come up with something cool and Betta themed. And it does really give people good feelings. It creates a lot of nice buzz about your shows if you have a pretty award or a cool different award. All right. So extras, like for example, a cash sales table. Cash sales tables are very cool because it lets people who can only be there for part of the time, especially if you're having a 2-day show and somebody can only come on Saturday, it gives them a chance to walk out of the place with a fish in their hand, well in bag. And so that's a really cool thing. And the club can make some extra money, and it's a good way to sell plants and other aquarium supplies without having to take that shouldn't really be in the auction.
And we do non-betta fish sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes there's
like other fish or like snails or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Like a lot of times with cash sales, what I see is like people will just come in off the street with their kid, not off the street, but they'll just come in like with their kids, and their kids like get all into the fish thing, and then there's a cash sale table. So then these kids walk out with the fishes, and they're like whole day is made. And like I think that's like a really cool thing because even the cash sales ones are like really gorgeous fish compared to what you're gonna see in a pet store. So
yeah, definitely. So that's a good thing, and you can also sell other things, artistic things, or you can sell food and things like that. Anyway, I've driftwood if people have stuff that's clean and fresh and able to be sold. Raffles are cool. We get a lot of traction from our raffles. We sell our tickets. You want to sell them for a reasonable price. We do $1 a piece or 6 tickets for $5, and that gives you a chance to win. You can do 2 different kind of raffles. You can do a raffle where you have boxes in front of each prize and people put in their tickets for which prizes they want, or you can do an open raffle.
that's usually good if you have like a lot of big prizes.
Yeah.
And like an open raffle is better if you have like a bunch of like a bag of like food and a almond leaf and like mixed kind of general beta stuff, and then a couple like grand prizes, like kind of a mixed thing is good.
People
In
come up
fun
and pick
order.
what they want as they win the prize. So either way is good. It just depends on what kind of prizes you have. We've done door prizes before at shows. Usually you pick kind of a medium to nice thing, give everybody who comes 1 free ticket, and then draw the ticket at the beginning of the auction or somewhere in the middle of the auction, and you win the door prize. No money involved. It's just a nice gesture of goodwill. And then silent auctions. Oh, you know what? I probably don't. So we can talk about that.
Okay, well, for raffles, like for convention, I was in charge of getting donations, and with that, the best way to do that is to do a lot of research online or talk to other people who have done it and find local fish stores and distributors as well as like national and international bigger companies, and make a form letter on Microsoft Word and do mail merge and send out what did I send out for this? Like
Cost me $40 in stamps,
80,
so,
I think
yeah.
like 80 or so letters, and you will be depressed because you will get about half of them returned because the Yellow Pages listings are wrong and they don't actually exist or they moved. But over time you can kind of hone it down and start developing like a really good list, and then you have contacts, so you can contact the same person next time. Just set a list and say like, hey, we're a club, we're supporting the Betta hobby, and we're having this show, and we would really love to have some of your products for a raffle kind of thing. Can you help us out? And we get good response. It's kind of a cold call, but people want to help you, but they don't know unless you reach out to them first. So that's really the best way, and it's probably better to not have your show chair do that, just to delegate it to someone who knows how to do mail merge and can receive a bunch of boxes or whatever at their house, and can transport whatever stuff they get to the vicinity.
We do get good, and we love Zoom in, because they always do cool stuff
Fantastic.
for us.
What do we get? We got
We got a gift certificate from
Dr. Fosterson Smith
They almost always do,
sends
yeah.
like a certificate or something. We got San Francisco Bay Brand. Central Aquatics actually sponsored a page in our program book, so that was really nice. The Aqua Ultraviolet almost always sends
they almost
a
always send
unit.
something. Those are nice.
Usually there's not really any response from local places, but then at least they know about your show.
Yeah.
And if someone is like talking about betas or breeding, then it might click in their head, oh, I saw a thing about a show happening, and then word gets out too. So
Yeah, never a waste, never a waste. Silent auction, we're having one at convention, that's a requirement for convention. I'm not sure I would do one at a small show just because there's not a lot of time and you want to have people interactively involved in the auction. You can do one, again, I don't know that it's a real good choice for a small club show. Convention's a different story.
And if you've never done a silent auction, they can get really aggressive.
Yes.
Like the last 10 minutes.
Yes.
And there's
people
like,
are like poaching them.
Yeah. People are doing
It
their
gets-
benches and things and they're hovering
it
over
gets
them.
intense, and so you might not want to jump right into that.
Yeah.
Sure can get some really high bids though.
People throwing things and yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. They got it in.
Dealer's room is another thing that's cool for a bigger show, but probably not for a small show. Again, we do that at convention, but I don't know that any club has the wherewithal to have an extra, unless you're having it, okay, if you're having it at a venue where you can have free space and as much as you like, then sure, invite, see if you can invite some dealers or local pet stores or places to come in and they can display products and sell them. That's not very feasible if you're doing it at a hotel especially. And then the Breeders' Cup raffle is absolutely a cool thing that I would recommend. When you send out your breeder postcards, you invite the breeder to send a really good pair to be Breeders' Cup fish, and you display them, and there's a raffle bin, and you sell raffle tickets for that too, that are a different color usually from the other raffle tickets, so you can keep them separated. And people put their tickets in for the fish they want to win, and then you can either do the Breeders' Cup announcement at the beginning of the auction, staggered through the auction, or all at the end. I don't like doing it all at the end because a lot of times people have to leave, and then if they put in tickets, then they're a little resentful about it. Doing it at the beginning is my preference, but because it lets people know what they've got, but then they might not bid because they already know they've got a nice pair of fish. So staggering, it's probably the most logical way to do it.
Not doing it all at the end is also good because for Breeders' Cup to be most effective, you don't want to bag them, you want to have them on display, and so then you have to bag them during the auction. Whereas everything else already
And the
bagged.
winners have to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the person who wins isn't
We do that
there,
with the raffle too.
yeah, then the
That you
next
have
one
to be
gets
present
drawn.
with the
Yeah,
ticket.
yeah. And then again, if you want to, for your Breeders' Cup, you can count the tickets in each bin at the end, and the breeder that got the most tickets of people interested in their fish gets a prize. All right, volunteers, people who will run your show for you. They can make the show a success or make it tragic and sad. You can't, and believe it or not, you can't have too many volunteers. The thing about volunteers is you need to have a strong core in your club of at least 6 members who are going to be there the whole weekend, and that's not including your chair or co-chairs. You should have at least 6 people in the club who will be there the whole time or most of the time, and know what they're doing or have a little bit of a sense of how to do a show. The best way to have resentful, unhappy club members is to host a show without enough people, and then everybody's pissed off at the end, and it doesn't matter if you've made money because everybody's cranky and the club gets involved. That's another good way to lose club members too. If you have a show and it doesn't run well and there's not enough people to do what needs to be done, then you have people saying, I don't want to be involved in this anymore, I'm just going to go out and breed my fish and I don't even care. And you don't want to lose that. You don't want to lose your club members. It's great to have club members from other clubs in the area to come and help you. Do not count on them. They can flake out. They don't have any vested interest in it. So if they come, it's great, awesome, extra hands. If they don't, then you're left in the lurch unless you have your own people around to take care of the slack.
Like, we have a really good relationship with Golden State Bettas from LA. We've gone down to their shows and they come up to our shows. But that's kind of been established, and so we know the core people and we're kind of in each other's groups at this point, even though we're divided by a state.
Yeah. And like I said, you can't have too many volunteers. If you've got a lot of people just kind of hanging around shooting the breeze while you're trying to bag fish, get the judges moving, get set up for the auction, all that stuff, that can be too many people. So make sure the people that are there are going to be helping and useful and not just there to kind of hang out and look at pretty fish. And if there's people that are hanging around that aren't doing what they need to do, you can always politely ask them to, kind of maybe go out in the hall because we've got the stuff that's got to go on. Kids can be awesome. Like Ariel was, what were you, 13 or 14 for her first show? Kids can be awesome to have at shows. They're bright, they're enthusiastic, they are usually willing to do stuff that other people don't like to do and crawl under tables and run around. But I gotta tell you, they can be a huge distraction. If they're not being helpful, they can absolutely drag everything down because somebody's gotta be keeping an eye on them. So if they're your kids, be sure they're helping, or give them an iPod and ask them to go away, or an iPad or whatever. 21st century, yes. Give them a book. Be different. The jobs at the show, which you've seen kind of demonstrated over the course of this so far. So the chairs, well, I mean, this is just kind of categories. The chairs run the registration, logistics, auctions, all the paperwork, set up, databases, all that kind of thing.
And usually do like the awards and.
Yeah, tabulate all the award amounts and things like that.
I mean, like actually like.
And write out the awards.
Writing out that's what they usually do, right? That's what I do.
Yeah.
Writing out all the ribbons, writing everydy's name and all the people from like Indonesia's really long names on ribbons 20 times because all their fish won.
Yeah. And then you've got the people who do the setup. Nelson always does a great deal of the setup for us. He's got the stands and he brings them out and whips it in together. Excuse me. Makes it happen. Builds the thing.
The stands get put up.
The stands get put up, yes. I knew something bad was going to come out of my mouth at some point. I think that's probably minor considering what the possibilities were. You need an auctioneer or 2 auctioneers. Sometimes 2 is nice because then somebody can take a break. Baggers and boxers, people who are getting the fish ready for the auction and for travel. And if you're going to have a show and you don't have people who are good at bagging, have a whole meeting where all you do is practice bagging. And don't put fish in the bags, just practice bagging. Because it's a skill. It took me, I was the worst fish bagger in CBS for probably the first 6 years of CBS. I'm actually not bad now, and I think I'm pretty good. But God, I had a bad learning curve. So make sure that you spend time practicing, because that's one of the hardest things to do.
On different bags, because some breeders send bags that are this big, and if you've been practicing on bags that are this big, you're going to have a very hard time. So get lots of different kinds and practice with different amounts of water, because sometimes they tell you how much water to use and send you little cups with measurements. So any scenario you can conceive of, practice it with bag.
There's a breeder that sends little bits of bag, little short bags, and they want all the bags, the fish get double bagged and then put in the paper bag so nobody can see each other in the box that's completely dark. And it keeps the fish a little bit calmer and pads them a little bit. I mean, they're all cool ideas, but as you're bagging, you should be prepared for all this stuff. And make sure the people who are doing the bagging are both efficient and effective. Auction runners, those are the folks who help out with the auction by, I'll tell you how the auction goes and I'll tell you what the runners do because I'm going to talk about the auction next, but they're the people who put the fish in the buyer's bag and take the receipts to the buyers. And then gophers are people that are just useful to have around, and they do all the other things that I haven't talked about. And hopefully they're the kind of people that you can tell them to do something and you don't have to spend 20 minutes explaining exactly what you mean and how many times and how long it should take and all that. They can just do it.
You also do runners during judging.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Take
judging
slips to
assistants.
the person doing data entry and to carry fish around that are being reclassed
Yeah,
and keep their paperwork with the right fish and
yeah.
all that kind of thing. I'm trying to think because I feel like this is not exhaustive.
Well, that's why I included the gopher category.
I mean, like you need someone to do to be in charge of like handling the. You probably want to have a separate person doing catch table because it's probably going to be happening at the same time as
Judging and other things,
judging
yeah.
and other things that the show chair is doing. I don't know, if you're thinking more.
Yeah, and there's kind of a function that I fill in a lot of our shows, which is kind of hospitality, meaning that which is what I'm doing here, but it's kind of making sure that there's some snacks to to eat, and if we need pizza, I go get it, and make sure there's soft drinks and bakes and things, and that's always nice to have. It's not a necessary.
Have a plan for food.
Oh, yeah, I did
And
put that in too.
have a time and say like, okay, when we get to here, we're eating, and even if that means we stop benching for 5 minutes and eat pizza that I brought in, because that can like kill everything if your people are not feeding them. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna do this and finish this. No, eat.
Yeah, yeah, and if you're not in
Eat
a nice
food.
hotel with water pitchers, make sure there's bottled water,
Mhm.
because dehydration and starvation are bad.
It's like, yeah, it's one of those things that you don't think about until you're like, oh my god, everyone's freaking out because they're all hungry. No hanger.
No,
Yeah.
no hungries. Okay, so for the auction, that's how your show makes the money back that they put in, and maybe hopefully make some money. A few tips: pick an auctioneer who knows the fish, who knows about betas. Don't pick your friend who auctions at goldfish shows to do your betas, because they're not going to have anything useful to say about betas. So make sure it's somebody who can talk well about the fish. Really nice caudal. Oh, look at those packs, pectoral fins. Look at the color. That's a perfect red color. That kind of. You can tell why I'm not an auctioneer.
Look at those things.
My commentary for an auctioneer. Oh my God! Look how cute he is. He's making eye contact. Oh, I need to bid on him because he likes me.
That's how she buys fish.
That's why I don't auction, because I'd be talking about their personality. Oh, he's a bruiser. Look at him. So somebody who's verbally and enthusiastic and encouraging. If it's somebody, especially if it's somebody who kind of knows who the bidders are, because they can kind of play with them at a personal level. Like,
And-
come on,
and knows their
come on, Jack.
lines.
I know you've got more room in your fish room. I'm gonna let this one get away. Things like that.
And knows their lines.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this would go really well into your like marble piquant
Yeah.
line kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's good. And also making up random names for new color
Yes,
frames
yes.
is a hit. We've gotten a lot of play from that. We have an auctioneer that we used before she moved away, Wendy McKenna, who was like, she's aces.
Yeah, she's
Got
really
her-
good. She's fast, she's
really
effective,
good. I
she's
think
got good
I
pattern.
think we like flew her in just for convention.
Yeah, we did.
last year.
Yeah, we did for convention last time, just
Because
because
she always like.
we didn't fly her in.
got it.
We let her use the presidential room.
Oh, okay.
We let her use the hospitality
Okay.
room for her bedroom because she needed the boost. And the other thing that she does is really cool is she'll say like, "Ooh, this is a really nice little blue girl. Hey, if you bought some of those blue boys that just went by, this is the girl you want." And it really does encourage people. You'd be surprised how much it encourages people to bid, because it makes them think about, well, yeah, this expert. Because if they're auctioneering, they must be an expert.
Can you talk about the video streaming at all?
I was going to. I didn't have that here.
Yeah, because then.
Um,
a recent thing.
What we have now with CBS that's been awesome and really helps the bidding just tremendously, we're getting so much better bidding because of it, is the video of the fish. So Christine diligently and at no great expense to her sanity gets good video of pretty much every single fish that we auction. And then we play it during the auctioneer talking. So now you don't have to trust that the auctioneer knows what a good 180 spread is. You can look at the fish and see its good 180 spread, and then you can bid.
I've been to a lot of fish auctions. The last CBS show that I came at, the whole room was, you were there the first time I met you.
Yeah.
The video, that just brought in like huge amounts of money,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, okay, the fish meetings that I go to, they get like $1 or $2 bags. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's nothing compared to what you guys are doing. And you know what, the extra work that you guys did, I'm like, this club makes like 30, 40, sells $20, $30 bags. At a cichlid talk, it's just like 20 for like 1 or 2 bags maybe, but usually like 2 or 3. I'm like, this is pretty awesome, and it's a great idea.
Oh,
And I see
yeah.
you guys do it
Yeah.
in 2011 and at a couple of local CBS shows, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow.
Having a good AV person on your team is
Technician, yeah.
such
Yeah.
such an asset.
Absolutely, yeah, Christine is aces.
I mean, doing
And
this.
that's all they're gonna do though,
live
too.
streaming.
Yeah,
It
pretty
takes
much,
a whole
yeah.
day for them to get
Pretty
that
much.
stuff done.
Because you hate it when you bid up on something and you look and the runner brings the bag to you, you've already paid for it, it deformed, spines are bent, I'm like, wait, this is a fish club, how come 5 of the 6 fish are deformed?
Yeah.
That's like totally uncool.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
Yeah.
get, yeah.
Go ahead.
And you get to see the fish when they're
action.
relaxed and in their
Mhm.
beanies and have
Rather
been in
than
their
pissed
beanies
off
for
in
a
their
day or two,
bag.
as opposed to having just been bagged and being clampy and small
Yeah.
and weird and being jostled around as they're being moved.
And occasionally dropped, because it happens. You will drop a fish during your show at some point in a bag. You will also,
Breathe and move on.
You will also lose a fish in the big bucket, and you'll have to get in there with your hand and scoop it out. All these things will happen. So the fish will all be bagged for the auction. Be sure buyers have a chance to see the auction fish either during the show or after. Usually what we'll do is we'll bag them all and then we'll put them in beanies in their bags, and and then we let the public come in and look at them, and they can pull them out of the beanie as long as they put them back in the beanie.
And keeping them in the beanies, I think, keeps them organized too.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier so
Than
that
having a
grab
big,
them in.
we
And
used to
having
just
them
have a
like-
big bin of fish
And having
in
to be
bags.
jostled
and it was-
around and rolling.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, big bin of fish in bags is not as effective. The other thing too is that it keeps the tags on, which is nice, the labels. And like I said, talked about shows or showing pictures or better or videos, and that does up the sale if you're seeing your fish swimming around. And a lot of impulse. I bought like 2 fish. I impulse bought at least 2 to 3 fish at the last show because I saw them and I went, I didn't pick that fish out, but god damn, he's pretty. So that's always very useful. We do our bidding. I'll just talk about bidding a little bit. What we do is none of this, I'm bidding, arm up and down. You take your bidder card, everybody gets a bidder card that has their own number on it. You hold the bidder card up.
We have like laminated half sheets, I
Yes.
think, and those work really well. You
Yeah,
can reuse them.
yeah. When you hit the number that if I'm not gonna pay more than $20 for this fish, and the auctioneer says 21, my hand comes down. The last person whose hand is up at the last price that the auctioneer says is the one who gets the fish. If 2 people put their hands down, then the auctioneer will usually back up one and say, okay, do I hear 20? And then my hand would go back up because that's still what I'm willing to pay.
With their hand
The
up.
first person with the hand up gets it. So that's how we handle that kind of auctioneering. And then the runner is useful because the runner then takes the auction fish and the receipt that has written down a receipt with a continuous number of the fish and writes down the number of the bidder that just won
And the price.
and the price of the fish. So then they take that receipt book, they show it to the person who bought the fish, they show the person the fish that they just bought, they initial it or sign it. 1 copy of the receipt goes to the buyer, the fish goes in the bag that's got the number of the buyer. So if I'm number 12, my receipt says number 12 and the fish goes in bag number 12, and then the other copy of the receipt goes to the desk. So that if the desk missed anything while they're typing out who's buying which fish and for how much, which is what I'll be doing on Sunday, then there's a backup record.
It's usually good when you're doing the auction. I don't know if we're doing it this year, but we usually do it. Is have 2 people doing duplicate
Yes,
records.
we are, Jeremy and I are both.
Okay. Because that way if one person misses something, they can ask the other person, and also at the end 2 people can be checking out.
Yeah.
Because you need that list to be able to check out and sort and figure out how much people owe, and then so 2 people can be doing that, and it makes things go a lot faster.
And then sometimes we'll have to say, do a raffle, because I just didn't catch, I was bidding, so I don't know how much that fish just sold, the fish before this one just sold for, so please, Jeremy will tell me what the price I need is while the raffle is going off, or something like that.
With that, you really can't check out during the auction, but sometimes we'll have like scheduled breaks.
Yeah.
If people wanna leave early,
we're gonna have to do
Yeah.
that this time because we have
Yeah.
people flying out during auction. So we'll
Yeah.
have breaks in the middle of the auction where we'll do some raffle prizes or something, or take a potty break or whatever.
Yeah, and and do we usually schedule those, or do we just kind of do it as people?
For
with
convention,
questions?
we're gonna have to schedule
Yeah,
one.
that's what I thought.
Normally at a show, if we have somebody, a couple of people that stand up and say, I really, you know, or have talked to the show chair and said, I really need to leave at 2, can we take a break around then so that I can
Mhm.
check out and go? And you can be
It-
flexible about that.
Yeah, maybe don't make it like a published policy where you're like, please tell us if you need to stop early and we will accommodate you, because then everyone will want to do it.
Yeah.
But just be flexible and kind of, roll with it.
Yeah.
I was definitely gonna just say something else about it too.
Well, we could,
I'll see if I
you can go back to it.
go back.
The absolutely not exhaustive list of materials and supplies. You gotta have racks, fish, I mean, if you're here, you kind of know what you need, cause you've seen, you gotta have racks, fish containers, big tanks for the wild types, cause they don't like the little Beanie Baby boxes, nets, buckets, trash bins for water, bags, conditioner, hoses, pumps, thermometers, dollies, you know, a baby's arm holding an apple, towel, from a song, towels, divider cards so that the fish aren't looking at each other the whole time, heaters to heat the water up, you might need to heat the water up, class signs, labels for beanies. Very important word about labels, they need to not be permanent ones, you need to be able to take them off the Beanie Baby box and attach it to the bag that the fish goes in. Otherwise, you're going to be scraping Beanie Baby boxes and everybody's going to be angry and broken fingernailed. Not good. And then you can have dots to connote class placement. So blue, first place in the class gets a blue dot, second place gets a red dot, third place gets a yellow, I think is how it goes. Yeah.
Well, we use stickers that actually say first place, second
Yeah,
place,
okay,
third place.
all right. But you can, yeah,
We're
you can use
fancy.
stickers or dots. We're fancier now. You need the auction stuff, you need bidder forms, you need to, when you have people come in and want to bid, you need to make sure and get their name, address, some way to contact them.
And you can also make that double as like, hey, you're
Yes.
bidding, you're now signing up for our email newsletters or
Yeah.
information.
Reminders for the next auction.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you have to send out auction reminders, which is good, is you get a good database of people that you can call on when you have a show. You need to have lots of, you need to have judging sheets that you print out, auction sheets. I don't know if we're doing them, we've done it in the past. Sometimes it's nice to have a list of all the fish that are going up for auction, that you can use, that people can come in and use for reference to mark fish that they're interested in and things like that. It's not always possible. It's a really cool thing. It's a lot of goodwill for your bidders if they can have a list and have to, you know, be able to write on it with the fish's continuous number in their class. Very cool if it can be done. It's not always, there's not always enough
Breeder.
time for it. A breeder, yeah, that's especially nice to know too. You need club and membership forms because hopefully you'll get some new clubs. You might need some extra entry forms. Hopefully you won't, because no one will think of bringing their fish in without having pre-registered, but it happens sometimes. No one would ever do that, no.
Not judges or anything.
No. And then raffle tickets, if you're gonna do a raffle, 2 colors if you wanna have, 3 colors if you want a door prize, a breeder's cup, and a raffle, or less if you are having less of those. Laptops and printers, 1 printer for sure, maybe 2, preferably 2 people with laptops. Power strips, paper, labels, blacking cartridges, Sharpies, pens, pencils, blue tape to put signs up. Hotels don't like signs, regular tape. Packing supplies, bring extra Betta boxes, bring a couple, because sometimes people's fish don't, the way they pack them to come to you may not be the way you want to pack them to go away because they didn't have enough room. So you might have to do something like that. And labels and tape and things like that. And then judging supplies, usually judges like to have clipboards to write on, flashlights to look at the fish, straws to make them excited, things like that. As far as technologies, most shows these days run on technology. There's almost always one laptop that's managing the entries, doing the money, the judging results, like Ariel was doing at the last show. Get a good show database, be careful when entering information and keep your numbers straight. Most clubs will give you a database. If you're having your first show, I know we will.
Yeah.
We are happy
Good
to
setup.
share our show database, and it works really well. It's been refined and played with over the last several years.
But practice with it before you
Yes.
have to use it.
Yes.
Practice everything, do mock whatever's, if you wanna have like a mock auction at your meetings leading up to it, just to practice with it so that you're not scrambling and trying to learn while things are going. It'll make things run a lot smoother. And it's generally good to have one person with their one laptop who's doing all the technology and all the Excel databases all the way through, whether that's your show chair or whether you delegate that to someone who's up to the task.
Yeah.
Just the heads up,
I know, we're gonna run.
You can talk as
I'm
long
gonna-
as
I'm
you
gonna run a
want.
little over, but not a lot.
As long as you want.
And, what was I gonna say? Keeping your numbers straight. Oh, it's good to have a flash drive or two laying around, to pass the data back and forth, especially if you've got one person doing all the database stuff up into the auction, and then you've gotta get that information to a second computer so that you have a backup person, so you wanna
Just
put it on a flash
making
drive.
backups in case.
Yes, and making lots of
Make backups.
backups in case the
Save it
power
to your
goes
flash
out
drive
and you
every
have it
once in a
saved
while.
and all of that kind of thing. Yeah, we're a little paranoid about all that. Be sure you have a good computer, don't use somebody's, 20-year-old, well, I'm probably aren't 20 year, their 10-year-old computer that sometimes shuts down randomly and, but they're willing to sacrifice it for the beta show. They don't get hurt when they're at shows. Keep the fish away, but use a good computer. And remember that technology is only as good as the person using it. So make sure that your computer people are comfortable and happy doing that and that they want to. Don't force anybody to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And have a reliable printer because you will need to print things out. Probably the things you least expect. And so we have 2 more slides. So wrapping it all up, you've done everything, you've managed everything, it's been awesome, your club members are happy, your coffers are overflowing with auction money, but you're not done. Because you've got to announce the results to IBC list and to let the show coordinator know so everybody can get their points. You need to make sure the boxes get mailed back to their owners as soon as possible. Usually your show is a weekend thing, so Monday will be the next time that you can get them ready to go. Get them out Monday. Breeders are not happy when their fish don't come home. Be sure that the reg sheets are returned and make sure that they know which fish won which thing. So on their registration sheets it'll say like continuous number 127 was best of class A, and one reserve best of show or whatever. Coordinate and send out award certificates, checks, auction, cash table sales records to entrants. That can be done within a few days to a week after the show. You don't have to do that right away. Obviously people want to get their money as soon as possible, so everybody will be real happy if you do it quicker, but sometimes you're so burned out, you gotta go back to work on Monday, you're so ready to be done with the whole beta show thing, and most people who put on shows understand that it might take, like you might get together the following weekend on Saturday and spend a couple hours in the afternoon with 2 or 3 of your club members in the chair putting all this stuff together.
And it will take that long.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
your fingers will cramp and
Yes.
you will want to cry. So just be prepared with like one.
Yes.
And just make it a party. Make
Yes,
it fun.
yeah, have it the post-show party. And then it really, really, really is a good idea to debrief with your club. Have a post-mortem, sit down and talk after things have kind of settled down. Well, no, that's business. That's a business term. I've always thought it was kind of nice to say, but sit and talk about this went really well. I thought this was great. This kind of sucked, and we don't want to do that again. That kind of thing, and that's really useful because as you have shows, you get better. We were really the first show I chaired. My head was spinning, and I was spitting out green jello green pea soup by the end of the show because there was just so much that was not coordinated well and not managed. And it was just because we didn't have the infrastructure. We hadn't done it enough times to really know what we were doing because I think it was like the 3rd or 4th show we had. Now we've done enough shows. We've done spring and fall shows every year for probably the last 5 years. So we have it down. We know who does what. We know who's good at what. Everybody kind of has a groove that they're in. You got to keep doing it. If your first show is kind of, oh God, I don't ever want to do another one, but but all the people that send in fish and all your auction buyers and everybody's reasonably happy with the results, do another one. It will get better. And in the end, you will hear about your show. There will be talk. There will be at least one person that you would like to strangle. Sometimes more than one, as a chair especially. People will talk. Sometimes the buzz is good. Sometimes it's not good. Try to make it instructive. Don't take it personally because they're not talking about you. They're just talking about the show. A good show is a result of planning, hard work, attention to detail, luck, but mostly not luck. If your first show is a success, awesome, congratulations, you're the 1%. If it's not, like I said, keep having shows because it's worth it. And you will know what needs to be fixed because it will be very obvious to you by the end. And good luck with your show and have fun doing it. Try not to lose that. If it starts to get to a point where it's no fun anymore and you've had, you do a show and it's just terrible and you don't ever want to do it again, try another one. But if at that point maybe shows are not your club's thing, and you don't have to have a show to be a good club. Good clubs exist for the love of the hobby and for the love of betas. And the camaraderie of being a fish person in a room full of fish people when everybody else thinks that you're a little Looney Tunes. When you tell them about fish shows and they say, what, you put them on leashes and walk them around the ring or what? No.
My fire guys.
Yeah, you're doing a what?
Stop mentioning it.
Yeah. Anyway, so have fun with it, enjoy it. Try to set a little bit of fun of time where you can be a little bit lighthearted, and if you need any help, the CBS is always available. And all of us, I know, that work the shows here, are more than happy to offer any advice that we can to support other clubs.
You can ask us, especially during this show, because we're less kind of busy, like we're not the show chairs. If you see something happening and you're like, oh, why are you guys doing it that way? Or like, how does this process work? Feel free to ask us as you're seeing this show unfold, like why we've made the decisions to do things that way, and what the processes are, because that's a good way to learn too, is to kind of like, it's like a live tutorial.
Ask questions. And if you're out there on live streaming land and you have questions, you can always post them to CBS on Facebook, and one of us will get back to you. If not anybody else, then Ariel or I will be checking and making sure. Or you can always contact us on Facebook, June Delane or Ariel Peterson. Just message if you have questions about the presentation. And if you never talk to the internet, and if you would like a copy of this presentation, please let me know, and I will make sure that you get one. And I think that's it. Any questions? All right, awesome. Only 6 minutes and 20 seconds overtime. Yay! All right.
I don't know how to stop the streaming.
I don't either.
How do you shut down the internet?
Do we just close the laptop?
Push buttons.
And Ariel will push buttons and see if
Stop streaming.
Stop streaming.
Stop screaming.
That makes it easy.
And if you have any other questions, we'll be in the bar.